What is a home front hero?
Greetings. I'm John Luckadoo with the 100th Bomb Group, and I'm reminding you that last year we at PVN held the inaugural ceremony to celebrate and commemorate the home front heroes, those who have supported and do support those of us on the battle line or on the front, although not in uniform, particularly in World War II. They came out of their homes and went into the factories and outproduced the world. It was a galvanizing exercise when everybody in the nation put their shoulders to the wheel and backed those of us on the front lines. As you probably are well aware, in this country, we have for years had days designated where we celebrated and commemorated the memory of, for example, on Memorial Day, those who lost their lives in defending our country and our freedoms. We have Flag Day, we have the 4th of July, we have Veterans Day, we have Armed Forces Day, we have all sorts of celebrations designated to commemorate the memory and the service of all of those who actually served our country through the years in uniform. But unfortunately, we have never dedicated a day to the memory and the service and the sacrifice that was so selflessly contributed to support those troops in the front lines, namely the home front heroes. So what we're proposing is that we designate a national day in which we will set aside time to pause and give thanks to those who have served so selflessly through all the years to support us, because without them, we would not have prevailed. But in today's pandemic, there are those, particularly the caregivers, the doctors, the nurses, the responders, and all of those who are rising to the occasion and supporting the war effort against this insidious disease. These people should be thanked. They should be made to know that we appreciate greatly all that they have done to support those who are on the front lines. We'll be celebrating and commemorating this important time in our lives on May the 9th of 2020. Look forward to your participation. Sayonara.
Let's learn more about these home front heroes.
Well, hello there. My name is Lisa Foster. A lot of people call me Rosie the Riveter. I am inspired by Rosie the Riveter and have been since 2012. A friend challenged me to do something exciting, to ride on a C-47. And he said, well, you're going to have to do something special, like dress up like Rosie the Riveter. And I said, why not? So I did. And it has been such a joy to learn about the stories of these women that were so inspirational, that they just rolled up their sleeves and they said, we can do it. And that really resonated with me. And that's how my Rosie the Riveter adventure began. I'm Rosie. A lot of people call me Rosie the Riveter. I am an American icon that represents all the ladies that worked in manufacturing plants and built tanks and ships and planes and bombs during World War II. It was a very special time, and ladies were doing a lot of great things. And remember, this was in 1940s. We all came together to do what was best for the country. We said, well, we want to get these boys home soon. And we wanted them to get home safely and win the war. So that's what we did. We learned about a lot of new tools that we'd never learned before. Like, for instance, we learned how to use one of these. You know what these are, girls. These are rivet guns, for those of you that don't know. That's a rivet gun. We use these to join two pieces of metal to make a permanent seal, whether that was a plane or a tank or a ship. But, there was also another important tool called a bucking bar. And just like my name is Rosie the Riveter, I riveted. But there were other ladies that were buckers, and they used this tool to really close the seam. When two pieces of metal come together, it's important to close the seam to keep the structure sound. So in the air, it's not going to come apart. Or in the water, it's not going to cause drag. So this tool is very important, and that's a bucking bar. Well, there's some other tools that were really important too. One of them was called Cleco pliers, right? That was used to hold the actual tip or hold the two pieces of metal temporarily. And this is what we call a Cleco. So these were temporary fixtures. So we learned a lot about all these different tools, and man, was it a lot of fun. And a lot of people asked me if it was difficult. And I said, well, no. Again, I just roll up my sleeve and I said, I can do it. And we learned a lot. And did you know that there are some 21st century Rosies? They said that they leaned on our legacy to really help them to now think outside the box and make masks to combat this COVID virus. It's amazing. There are women that built purses and had a plant in, say, Ohio, and now they're refitting that particular piece of machinery so that they can make masks and gowns for the people that are working on the front lines, nurses and doctors and all those that require special protection while they're working. And using that inspiration of us Rosies to help them get the job done and really work together as a country to combat this COVID virus. It's amazing. Well, it was nice talking to you today. You guys stay safe, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Rosie wasn't the only type of home front hero.
I was the youngest teletype operator for Western Union. I received all of the telegrams that were coming in, 17 years old, and that meant that I had to get all of the telegrams to the people back then because we didn't have iPhones. It was my responsibility to deliver the messages of any casualties or death to the families. We had an agreement with the State Patrol of Utah that they would deliver the messages to the families so that we did not have to do that for them. Sometimes after school, we would have messengers say, you just received a telegram. The little young boy could take the message to you. But any casualty messages of a death or missing in action or wounded, then the State Patrol would deliver them to the families to make sure that they were all right at the particular time. So that's what I basically did during the war.
There's something true about red, white, and blue.
Since that really coincided with my college years, there were no cars at the college campus. We got telephone pole legs, we said, going up and down the hills of Ithaca. And I worked at the hospital as an aide because they needed extra help. Everybody had gone off to the war. The war years were definitely different, whereas the normal number of men per woman at Cornell was 4-to-1. That changed the ratio considerably until they came back to study. We didn't feel deprived particularly. That was just life, the way life was at that time. Oh, I think it was just a given. It was something that, it was part of you. It was just part of everything we did. And we didn't really give it a lot of thought because we weren't feeling deprived. We were all in it together. It isn't only the COVID-19 that's got us all doing something together. Yeah, we took it in stride. And of course, at that age, you're a little more adaptable than you would be at a later stage, perhaps. Yeah. I liked working at the hospital. I learned how to make a square corner and how to make beds that you could bounce a quarter on. Those were wonderful days. But like everything about life, I'm not one to want to go back and relive most things. I just think you look forward to the next chapter.
Homefront heroes took pride in supporting our troops.
There was a little town in Nebraska called North Platte. It was actually only about 90 miles from where I departed to fly overseas in my B-17. But that little town was on a railroad that extended clear across the country. And during the war, right after Pearl Harbor, they got word that their National Guard, for the Nebraska National Guard, was sending some troops, these youngsters some of whom were only 17 years old, across the country to the West Coast to be shipped overseas. And voluntarily, the townspeople got together and went to the train depot. And lo and behold, when the train pulled in, they were just going to give them during their short stop there, which was only about 10 or 15 minutes for the train to take on water. But they were going to give them a smile and a cup of coffee and cheer and let them know that they were being supported. And during the course of the year, that town of only about 12,000 people got together every day for 6 years. And they served over 6 million soldiers coming from the West Coast to the East Coast and vice versa. During that time, from 5 o'clock in the morning till long after midnight, day after day. It didn't have a dime of government support. It was purely a spontaneous outpouring of love and care and concern for these youngsters who were going overseas at that time, some of whom had never been away from home before. And they wanted to be sure that they were getting a proper send-off for their service overseas. So that was the type of thing that we point to and we remember with such affection and such appreciation that is very little known. But it did occur, and they continued that for the entire war years, and just out of the goodness of their hearts. People came from miles around just to participate in that few minutes they had with those soldiers to give them a glad hand and a smile and a pat on the back.
Grandmother who lost her husband while he was serving, her stories of being home and going through rationing and taking up new types of work and focusing on just a country coming together in service was also just as formative. I tell people to this day, we just lost her a couple of years ago. She taught me how to love and what sacrificial service meant in kind of a unique way too. And so we're all still learning so much from this generation.
Check out some cool Homefront hero memorabilia.
My name is Scott Timms. I live here in Dallas. I'm a member of Commemorative Air Force. I'm also a collector of World War II memorabilia. And a lot of my memorabilia includes things that reflect the efforts of people on the home front. And of my collection, a lot of it belonged to people in my family. So to start, a couple of things I want to show you right away. This is a 48-star flag. So before we had Alaska and Hawaii in the Union, this was the flag during World War II and belonged to my grandparents. And then I want to show you this flag. This is a very special flag. This is called a Son in Service flag. And people hung these outside their windows. Of course, I realize that most of y'all could school me on some of this stuff, but I want to explain what some of these are for people who don't know. So, Son in Service flags hung outside the window, and the two blue stars reflected that you had two sons in service that were alive and serving. Now, if in this case, if you had 4 sons, then your flag would have 4 stars on it, and if sadly, if you lost one of your sons in wartime, then the color of the star would change to gold. And so that's why we have the term Gold Star families. So, this one actually it's not in great shape, but this is one from a different variety of someone who served in the Navy. Now, these are flags, but if you had someone serving in the during that time, then you might also wear an emblem like a pin on your blouse, or men had lapel pins, bracelets, or all sorts of things that had this design on it to proudly let everyone know that you had sons in service. This is my great-grandmother. Her name was Dora Bronner, and she was a real Rosie the Riveter. She worked at the Consolidated Aircraft Factory in San Diego, California. And you can see she's wearing her coveralls and her lunch pail. And then here, in this other photo I have of her, she's holding a model of the B-24. And then there's her lunch box down, or her toolbox down here at her feet. And then also, she worked with my grandfather in the same aircraft factory. So there he is, and that's my grandmother and my mom. And so there they were in San Diego during the war. And these are some of their things. This was a hard hat that my grandfather wore, and one of the old tools from that time. And then these are certificates that aircraft workers typically got for length of service without calling in sick, things like that. So these are the ones that my grandfather and my great-grandmother received. And then here, these are service pins that my grandfather was in aircraft manufacturing his entire life. And so these two up here are from wartime. And then this is an excellent service, a pin that was awarded for excellence in aircraft manufacturing during the war. And then that's a B-24 pin also. During World War II, it was important to direct supplies to the soldiers overseas, including food. So these were ration books. Everything was ration. Sugar, flour, even tires. And so when you went to make your purchase, you had to use these stamps. Even kids were encouraged to get involved in the war effort. So in this case, this is a little donation box here. Looks like a drum. It says, "Remember Pearl Harbor, do your part. Save for U.S. Defense Savings Bonds." And this was a little book where you could buy U.S. postage stamps, and you would paste these in, and then when you filled it up, you could use that towards buying victory bonds as well. Of course, this is just a toy airplane from the time. But victory bonds, that was a real big deal. This is a trade magazine. You just couldn't go anywhere without seeing all the advertising and promotions to encourage the purchase of war bonds. You know, if you bought them, this is a very old war bond victory wallet, it says. And, you know, really like this one because it says keep them flying, and there's your Army Air Corps emblem under there. There's the V for victory and the Statue of Liberty on there. Really special piece. Now, these are a couple of clippings. One of these, this came out of the factory newsletter, and I really like this. You know, it's focused on women. And then here below this is an ad that was in a newspaper, clipped out. And, you know, so all the advertising and things of that time were very supportive of the war effort. Now, while my grandfather and great-grandmother both worked in the aircraft factory, my grandfather also was a civil defense captain. So there on the West Coast, there was fear of bombing by the Japanese on that coast. So they had blackouts, and this was his armband. And then above was his certificate and things he had to do in order to be, you know, to be certified to do that. So this is the Family Circle magazine from March of 1944, and I wanted to show it to you because I thought it was interesting. The topics that were highlighted on the cover. At the top it says victory food, 8 million tons of it from 20 million victory gardens were added to our food supply last year. And then this article below also, how will you treat your serviceman when he comes home after the war? So yeah, this magazine, these topics are very much indicative of what families were dealing with on the home front during that time. These photo frames were very popular during World War II. As you can see, they had positive messaging on them. So this one on the left says, keep them rolling, and has a tank and a half track on the bottom. And then over here, same thing, just a smaller version. And this just so happened, this one's special because that's actually my wife's father as a little boy with his dad. So anyway, these were very popular in homes back then. Now, here's something that's really cool. It's called VE Mail. And instead of writing a letter on stationery, mailing it with a stamp, these were done differently. I'm sure you know, so I won't explain all that. But here, this one was a Christmas greeting from a family friend sent to my grandparents. And then these were the emails sent by my grandfather's brother to the family. He was in the Army Air Corps in Italy. And so there's a couple of those. And my mother's family was from East Texas, small town Grand Saline and Wills Point. And even though they were in California, they were able to get the local newspaper and keep up with hometown boys. And so in this scrapbook, I've pulled out some examples of people that they knew and they clipped out, they wanted to save. And all these clippings are, you know, about just news about each of these soldiers. And some cases it was a promotion, and sadly in some cases it was, you know, someone who was killed in action. Okay, I'd like to show you some jewelry I think you'll find very interesting. There are a few buttons here. This one up here on the top is General MacArthur, and then this tiny little button here is supports the Liberty Loan Program for war bonds. And of course, this one is from the presidential campaign supporting President Roosevelt. But this other jewelry here, it's, this particular one is a bring back souvenir from Italy. But all the rest of this is, a lot of this is what we call sweetheart jewelry. So here's a really good example here of a piece where on the back is engraved the name of the GI, and then here is a photograph of his wife or his sweetheart. And if we can get in close here, you can see it says, God bless you and keep you, my dear. It's a beautiful piece. And then here's another piece where the GI's initials are engraved. And then this one has the GI's name and a service number here. And then on the back it says Mother, Dad, and KZ. So this one, the GI would have probably worn. But you know, this one the GI wore. But sometimes the GI had one made for his sweetheart to wear here at home. And here's an example of one that's it's not engraved, customized, or anything, but you recognize the son in service. And then here's the Army Air Corps emblem. Then there's another bracelet down here I found that are really tiny and dainty, but very cool. These are the Army Air Corps emblems. They're real small on that bracelet. Now here's one that I got a hold of that I thought was pretty neat. It says, "To my darling sister Claire," and then it's looks like it's in lucite. And then on the back, this was an Australian coin. So you may know that a lot of GIs would go on R&R when they were in the Pacific campaign. And so they would go there to recoup and re-outfit and everything for a little while, and picked up a lot of souvenirs there. And this was obviously one of those. And I think did I mention the sweetheart pin here? These are pilot's wings, but they're very tiny as compared to regular pilot's wings. And so this was likely worn by, you know, a wife or girlfriend or even a daughter, or even a son. So anyway, this is some of my jewelry collection. I thought you might enjoy seeing this. This is one of my favorite things in my collection. This is a little girl's sweater. And if you know anything about the size of patches, then you know you can kind of see the scale. But there's my hand. So this is probably about, I don't know, 13 inches or so. It's a toddler sweater. And so GIs in the neighborhood gave her patches, and her mother probably sewed these on. I don't think she was old enough. And it's really cute because, you know, some of these patches are they're not sewed on properly. And if you know anything about military, you know that they're incorrect in some cases, and this pin is upside down, but this is how it was found. And then, you know, the back has some more patches, and surprisingly, there's a Nazi army patch on here as well. So that was a bring back by a soldier. You know, but this patch is upside down, and this one is not aligned correctly. But, you know, it's a cute thing, and it's just very reflective of the time. And I can only just imagine, you know, what those GIs were like giving her those patches. So it's one of my favorite things that I have.
Modern day home front heroes are everywhere you look.
Currently, in this war on the pandemic, this insidious virus disease that we're confronted with, we also have a tremendous outpouring of civilians who are doctors and nurses and responders who are supporting our way of life as we want to retain it, and they too should be thanked. So we decided that we would strive to have a day recognized each year for that tremendous outpouring of effort and support.
God bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home.
home indeed.
Hello, we're here to celebrate and thank our hometown heroes.
Yes, and we have new home front heroes in the war against the coronavirus.
That is us and all of our friends and neighbors who are wearing these masks to protect each other, and we're all in this fight against the virus.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
A salute to the home front heroes. They kept America safe at home, supporting the troops during World War II.
And right now we're in a war, and Jim and I would like to salute our new legions of heroes, our pandemic heroes. Cheers and prayers.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a moment to thank Lucky for spearheading a wonderful cause for the home front heroes. We appreciate all that you do and for the great people that you want to highlight. It's ironic that in this day, as we combat this virus, we have modern day home front heroes on the battlefield trying to help out for another noteworthy cause. We see this as an endeavor that we will continue to support and make sure that it is recognized from a state and federal aspect. Thank you, Lucky, for all that you do.
Let's make it official.
I get the opportunity today, although under video circumstances, I'd much rather be standing there right with you and shaking your hand. I get to read a proclamation that Mayor Eric Johnson has issued and wants me to make sure to give to you so that we can appropriately celebrate May 9th. And so with your permission, I'll go ahead and read that proclamation to you now.
Thank you.
It comes from the Office of the Mayor, City of Dallas. Proclamation. Whereas Homefront Heroes Day is organized and spearheaded by John Lucky Luckadoo, who flew 25 missions as a pilot of a B-17 bomber in World War II, to honor Americans for their supporting role of the military in years past and present. And whereas it's important to recognize the individuals past and present on the home front who served selflessly at home to ensure the military can be focused on preserving democracy and freedom at home and around the world in time of war and peace. Whereas Homefront Heroes Day is the perfect complement to the existing holidays and special days that honor veterans and families. And whereas it is our hope that others will be inspired by Homefront Heroes Day, eventually establishing it as a national holiday. And whereas Homefront Heroes Day will acknowledge those individuals who make tremendous sacrifices and are serving their country at home while actively supporting the military. Now, therefore, I, Adam McGue, on behalf of Eric Johnson, Mayor of the City of Dallas, do hereby proclaim May 9th, 2020 as Homefront Heroes Day here in Dallas, Texas. With this proclamation, I will certainly give it to you personally and make sure it is in an appropriate place. And not only that, we have started dialogue with our local federal elected officials, our senators and representatives for this area, and look forward, they have all expressed interest, and so look forward into raising the awareness of this particular celebration due to your work and your efforts to really try to make this something that is recognized nationally. I see no better time than now, as we are all faced to some degree of suffering through this coronavirus outbreak and this pandemic, to really focus inward on our home front. And that differs in definition these days, but it is certainly a true statement. And so, again, I want to thank you for your work and your recognition, your service, and your heart for others in doing this. And thank you for including me in this part of it. I look forward to helping and serving in any way I possibly can to help your mission. And we need your voice in this for a lot of years to come.
Well, thank you so much, Adam. And here I have the proclamation that has been transmitted virally. And we certainly want to express our sincere appreciation for all that you have done and all the City of Dallas has done to support our efforts to secure a national day of recognition for the home front heroes. I look forward to seeing you again next year when we celebrate it on May the 9th.
Hey everybody, I'm Congressman Colin Allred. I am so excited and honored to help celebrate the second annual Home Front Heroes Day. Our service members make sacrifices every day to serve our country, and we all owe them a debt of gratitude. But it's also important to recognize the sacrifices of military families, volunteers, and ordinary citizens that worked at home to support our service members while they were abroad. From working in factories to help manufacture military supplies, to running scrap drives, or purchasing war bonds, I'm grateful to the community members, both past and present, who've given their time, resources, and efforts to support our military. I want to thank Presbyterian Village North and Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson for making this celebration possible. And I especially want to thank Mr. John Luckadoo, an Air Force pilot and World War II veteran who created Home Front Heroes Day to give back to those in our community who have so generously supported our service members. Thank you for your service and your dedication. As a member of Congress, I'm incredibly proud to serve on the House Veterans Affairs Committee and to work for the brave men and women who made incredible sacrifices in serving our country. We made a promise as a nation to support our service members, and I'm proud to join in this new tradition and celebrate our home front heroes on this special day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucky Luckadoo, for your service and for making Home Front Heroes Day come to life. We're grateful for all the heroes that fight to make a difference, particularly in this time of crisis, the first responders on the front lines who are keeping us safe, who are risking their lives to protect each and every one of us. We love you and we are grateful for you. We stand with you on Home Front Heroes Day. God bless you.
Join us on Lucky's big mission to create a National Home Front Heroes Day. Stay tuned for updates on how you can get involved.